Hello, good morning and welcome. I am joined today by my guest, Steph from HM Referencing. How are you doing, Steph?
Hi, David. I'm fine, thank you. Happy to be here and meet you at last.
It's great to have you with us. We're talking about something which is an everyday staple of the lettings industry, and it's something that very much forms it's the centerpiece of everything we do when trying to put a new tenant into a property, and that's obviously referencing. And there are many different standards of referencing. There are many different people that do it, and every agency does it in a slightly different way. And every company have their own USPs. So tell us a little bit about your company. How long has it been around for, and where did it all begin?
So HM Referencing, we're coming up to 10 years, David, which is something worth celebrating, I think.
Congratulations.
We're known as that agency with the high standards. So where we started 10 years ago was from Hazelton Mountford chartered insurance brokers who specialise in let property insurances, rent guarantee, legal expense, all those things. And the agents that Hazelton Mountford are working with over the years, it became evident that the referencing agencies at the time weren't providing the kind of service and level of checks that was needed in line with rent guarantee. And so, to cut a long story short, that's how it started. And that's how we work still today, providing very robust checks for tenants, the level of check that's really needed, that is so key, as you were saying, in that pre-tenancy process, to really provide agents with information to make a really informed decision for their landlords who are best protecting their investments, their properties. And yeah, the level of personal service is one of the main reasons why agents come to us. As you said, there are lots and lots and even more referencing agencies now popping up all over the place.
It's a balance between, I don't know whether there's more estate agents or referencing agents, but there's plenty of them. And for good reason. If there was not a need for them, then you would not see these businesses thriving. And I think each one has their own kind of niche and USPs. So you've mentioned one of your USPs being that personal service. Where else do you feel that you guys sort of really come into your own and add value?
Certainly the level of, I've mentioned the robust checks. One of the reasons our agents stick with us for years is so each agent has their own dedicated account handler. So that one person who they know, they build a relationship up with, built over the years. And a lot of referencing agencies where they might gather the information, send it back yes or no. We work with our agents. If and when there are red flags, which is our job to check those red flags, we will liaise with the agents, let them know this is a situation. Do you want us to keep going? We will explore all other avenues, what other streams of income there are, guarantors, what else there is. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones doing the checks and making the recommendations, but it is the landlord that makes the ultimate decision. So we need to work with their agent to make sure they know exactly what the situation is, where a recommendation is. We will never take an income reference as it is. We will always check the company, and we will speak directly with whoever it is that's given the reference. We've had many times someone providing a reference that was sent to, a Gmail email address, and there's a mobile number given. Yeah. No way would we take that. We'll look up the company, find, okay, who is the best person to give the reference.
So you won't just call their best friend and say, is Chris earning £100,000 a year? Yeah, he's the best employee I've got, and that's the end of it. You really sort of do go into detail, because those, famously, that was the kind of the old way that things were done. If you wanted to sort of pass a reference, you could, as long as you had sort of good basic credit, you could fill in the rest of the blanks yourself, couldn't you, with people that you knew. And I think, if referencing companies are putting in that extra hard work to sort of get to the bottom of it, not all references are equal.
No, and there are still a surprising number of agencies that will just take the reference, unfortunately. So
Yeah, okay. So in terms of the climate that we're in at the moment and technology and the way that things have moved on, one of the things that is now in our lives, whether we like it or not, is this element of open banking, which when I first heard of it, initially very scary, because this is, you know, effectively what you consider to be your most private sort of source of information, being your bank
yeah.
account details and your transaction history. But we see it coming into sort of play everywhere now when people are applying for mortgages. And that's also true in the referencing world. We've heard mentions of open banking. So how has that changed the way that you play that game?
So I have a very controversial opinion on this, David,
Let's go
and
for it.
I don't believe that open banking is sufficient enough to provide accurate reference checks. It's a brilliant way of telling someone how much has been earned over the last however many months. But our job as referencing agencies, as a referencing agent, is to give a good idea to the agent as to what will be earned during the tenancy with you. So, you know, the open banking won't tell us that this individual has just handed in their notice, that this individual has a fixed term contract. You know, we had in the Hayes Mountford claims team had a claim through recently, and we saw an accepted reference check from a very well-known established referencing agency, one of the market leaders, I won't say the name. It was an accepted reference, but it turns out there was a fixed term contract. The job ended not long after the tenancy started, and there was a CCJ. And it's just, I'm concerned at these referencing agencies that are apparently market leading, attracting all these agents, and they're just not looking after the agents and providing sufficient enough check to be able to make the informed decision. We know how hard it is for landlords in this industry, in the market now. We have to look after them. Why do you want to be, you know, serving your landlord, providing enough tenants that haven't been through good checks and have been very impressive? All open banking, you know, it's very impressive, but has the check been done well? Have they been cross-referenced? So yeah.
So all of these questions again, and I suppose when we talk about prop tech and we talk about, many people may watch this and say, well, you know, where's referencing in the world of tech? How does it all come into play? I think that all good pieces of prop tech need that human element of interaction. Everything that we do in our jobs as agents, the reason why we're still needed is that it's very much a people game, and we need the agents as those intermediaries. And you need that insight as a landlord. You're not necessarily always going to be able to ask all the right questions, because let's face it, you might not have that experience, but agents normally do. In the same way, an experienced referencing company who is not just going to rely on what the computer says, and it sounds like you guys really sort of delve into it, can be the difference between a landlord getting a pup or actually getting a really good tenant.
And I think it's so important, as you know, our technology adapts and is innovated. I think it's so important, as you say, to not lose that personal element, and that kind of that expert and professional element in the process. We've got our brilliant software developers. They help us to really innovate the system we use to make it a very efficient process, rather than a way of cutting corners. It actually frees us up to do the work in really checking and doing the robust check that's needed, and building that relationship with the agent and providing advice where needed. They often pick up the phone and ask for our advice on things. And that's another thing, the accessibility to us. We have agents coming that say, you know, they've been on hold for 5 minutes to their referencing provider. They send in an email that gets ticketed and passed around. And that is not the way to look after our agents. You know, we'll be right on the end of the phone answering any questions if we haven't already covered it. But it's these little things that seem little, but actually really change that process, that part of the tenancy process for our agents.
And so tell me, what do the tenants experience in all of this? Because you've spoken a bit about what the agents can expect,
Yeah.
and that sounds fantastic. You get human interaction, you get to know the people that you're working with, you get to build up a relationship, they get to know what you want, and you get to know how they work. And I think that has massive value. So that's what you've told us. In terms of the tenant experience from sort of day one, that's also quite important because this is it can be a very fraught time moving house. The market at the moment is for rental properties is absolutely on fire. You could rent a tent in your front garden like this. And because of that, there is an element of competition there. Tenants are arriving in a frenzy. They're very much sort of dreading that reference process because they
Yeah.
know it's one of these administrative hoops they need to jump through. But what do they experience from an agent or from you guys in terms of getting referenced?
Yeah. So as you say, that moving and going through tenancy, referencing is one of the most stressful parts. It can be really scary for tenants as well, as you're saying, looking through, you know, seeing bank statements, credit checks. Some people have been through it before and it went badly. What's going to happen now? Some people have never been through it. We will make a phone call to every single tenant just as they come on. As the agent provides us with their details, we'll make a phone call to them to introduce ourselves, outline the process, what will be needed, answer any of their questions, what we call a welcome call, to put them at ease from day one. And that same person will be there available for them through the process as and when they need.
So that's probably a really nice way to start the process, that you have that human interaction. It's not just sort of a computer form that you can't really gauge anything out of it.
Yeah.
It's probably a really good part of that process. It sets everybody calm and just ready for what's ahead.
Yeah, we think so. There's enough automation for it to be efficient and quick, but the automation is there to give us time for these kind of conversations to really help the tenants through the process, understand what's going on. And it might be that we've had that call and the referencing is done that very day. It might be there's a bit more to check, so it's the next day or the day after. But then for them to know there is someone, there's a human there ready to help, it means the world to them in what's a really stressful, what could be a really stressful thing.
It sounds superb. It sounds like it's kind of, some people listening to this might think, well, going back to sort of the way that things used to be, but the way that things used to be when you were dealing with people who were processing the references, and that was their task. It was on their desk. You knew that they would sort of take it from A all the way to the end, and they'd get it completely and thoroughly checked. Sometimes that's really needed because we tend, as you've already pointed out, relying on too much automation, or sometimes the open banking. It can be a controversial opinion, but it adds efficiencies. But to rely on that alone isn't going to get the job done, and certainly not with that personal touch. And I think that's what comes through from talking to you, is that I think your main USPs, if agents want a relationship with the tenant referencing provider that they can rely on, and they want their tenants to also have a very pleasant process, and just to take that kind of tension out of it, I think they could do a lot worse than talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of the things the agents love when they have a tenant on the phone who, as we know, the agents have a lot to do already. A tenant's on the phone stressing about something, and say, here's HM's number, give them a ring. And that's one thing off the agent's workload, pass on to us. And we're here ready to help and answer any questions.
And typically speaking, Steph, what's the sort of turnaround on referencing? Is it fairly quick?
Yeah, so we can either get it through instantly if we're doing that full credit check, but to do the fully comprehensive check, which most agents want and we do for them, between 2 to 3 working days is our average. And that's everything, including full cross-referencing of income, all streams of income, anything that's needed, extra guarantors and things. So in that regard, very competitive, but still with the extra element of expertise and personal service.
Awesome. So it sounds absolutely great. So any agents that are looking to get in touch with you and to learn a little bit more about your service, you can take them through how your system works. All your details are on Kerfuffle, so we'll make sure a link to that is put against this this video. But anybody out there that is interested in adding that personal touch and that customer service element back into the tenant referencing process and putting a little bit of human warmth into it, call Steph. She knows what she's talking about. They do it well, and they do it properly. Steph, I'd like to thank you very, very much for your time this morning. And yeah, looking forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, David.